Okay, let's get right into it. We all have those little quirks, right? Those reactions that kind of define us and the people we know. But what if I told you that a lot of our most confusing behaviors are all running on the same hidden software? Today, we're going to decode the surprising connections behind why we do the things we do.
So just think about these three people for a second. I mean, on the surface, they seem totally different, don't they? You've got the rebel, the quiet one, and the daydreamer. But it turns out, these are all just different masks for a few core, deep-seated human needs.
So let's start with one of the most powerful drivers we have, this fundamental need to feel some sense of control over our own lives. Because when the world feels chaotic, our minds will do pretty much anything to feel like they're back in the driver's seat.
Now, at first glance, these two things seem like a complete contradiction. On one side, you have someone who fights against any structure someone else tries to put on him. On the other, you have someone who builds their own super strict structure. They're polar opposites. Or are they? Turns out, they're just two sides of the very same coin.
And that is the connection. Both of these behaviors are all about managing that exact same need for control. When life gets messy and uncertain, our brain just scrambles to find an outlet. And whether you do that by tearing down someone else's rules or by building your own, the goal is exactly the same, to create a little island of stability.
So let's just break down the three faces of this drive. You have the rule breaker, right? For them, following the rules feels like giving up control. Their power comes from having a choice. Then you have the constant fixer, who gets their sense of control by being the person who can solve any problem. And the person who needs everything to be perfectly neat, well, they're controlling their physical world because when your space is in order, your mind feels just a little bit calmer. Three completely different behaviors, all powered by that one single drive.
All right, let's shift gears to our second driver. This one is all about survival, but not physical survival. We're talking about protecting our emotional core. When we learn early on that being vulnerable just leads to getting hurt, the mind gets incredibly creative with its defenses.
This quote just gets right to the heart of it. We so often mistake a quiet person for someone who doesn't feel things. But for so many people, that silence isn't empty. It's armor. It's a way to process overwhelming feelings on the inside, or to stop more hurt from coming their way. So how does this whole protective instinct even start? Well, it often begins early. If your feelings are ignored as a kid, your brain learns a really painful lesson. My needs don't really matter. And that belief becomes a filter for everything. Your mind starts seeing signs of abandonment everywhere. So to cope, you adapt. You become low maintenance, hiding your own needs so you're not a burden. And the final strategy, overgiving. You try to make yourself so useful that no one would ever want to leave you.
And we see this pop up in a few classic ways. You know, going quiet when you're hurt, that's a shield. Staying single isn't always about a fear of getting close. Sometimes it's just smart pattern recognition, a choice to protect your own energy. And people-pleasing, that's the ultimate defensive move, trying to earn the love that you don't feel you deserve just for being you.
Okay, and that brings us to our third and final driver, the great escape, the retreat into our own minds. This explains why some of the most creative, brilliant people we know can get completely stuck, preferring the world inside their head to the one that's right in front of them.
Here's a weird one for you. What could possibly connect the ambitious person who dreams big but never actually starts with the person who's constantly replaying imaginary arguments in the shower? One seems like it's about big goals, the other about anxiety, but believe it or not, they tap into the very same mental loophole.
And if you actually look at where our mental energy goes, the picture becomes kind of clear. Look at this. So much of our energy is spent just imagining things or overthinking them, compared to that tiny little slice that's dedicated to actual real-world action. Our minds are busy, for sure, but they're often just spinning their wheels in a safe little loop instead of engaging with the real world.
And here's why. It's because the brain can get a little hit of dopamine, a little bit of satisfaction, just from thinking about doing something. It's called mental rehearsal. Imagining you won the argument or achieved the goal gives you a sense of completion. And here's the crazy part. That feeling makes you less likely to go after the real thing, because in your brain, the job already feels kind of done.
And you can see this play out so clearly. Imagining fake arguments, that gives you the control you might be missing in real life. Dreaming big but never starting, you get all the good feelings of potential success without any of the risk of actual failure. And even overthinking what happens after you succeed, that's a form of this too. You stall because you're scared of how actually getting the thing might change you. So after digging into these three big drivers, what's the major takeaway here?
It's really about learning to look past the surface-level behavior and starting to see the fundamental human need that's actually pulling the strings.
And this, right here, is the key insight. We see the behavior, we react to the action, but that's just the symptom. The underlying need for control, for safety, for a feeling of security, that is the real story.
So let's just lay it all out one more time. The person who hates rules and the person who has to fix everything, they're both searching for control. The person who goes quiet when they're hurt or always feels replaceable, that's driven by a deep, powerful instinct for self-protection. And the person who gets lost in daydreams or just can't seem to start on their goals, they're taking refuge in the safety of their own mind.
So, I'll just leave you with this question. Now that you have this new lens for understanding people, and maybe for understanding yourself, what behavior are you going to look at a little differently? What will you choose to see not as a flaw, but as a clever, very human strategy for meeting a deep, universal need?